I just got three things to say. God bless our troops, God bless America, and gentlemen, start your engine!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 8 of the Stire Sound podcast. I'm Trey Stire, your host, as always. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to continue spreading the word and getting us more support. AMA Pro Motocross, back in action. The Ironman National just took place over the weekend, and we're going to jump right into things. We got a lot to cover, so joining me as always, from the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team, he was at the track this weekend. Jack Noel, what's up, man?
How's it going, man? It was good to be back at the races this past weekend, and the action definitely didn't disappoint. So I'm excited to talk about the results this weekend and how everything shook up.
Let's go ahead and get right into it. Starting off with the 450 class today, and finally, after 10 runner-up finishes, Hunter Lawrence gets his first ever 450 overall victory. The day started out Chase Sexton winning Moto 1. Hunter Lawrence led most of the race. Jett, his younger brother, the man who's dominated the series, jumped the start a little bit, knocked the gate over. We'll talk a bit more about that in a few minutes. That was definitely a controversial topic. But Hunter Lawrence got out front, was cruising for a while, had a nice gap. But Chase Sexton, after going down on one of the opening laps, started picking off people, got to second place, started catching Hunter Lawrence. I forgot to mention, Eli Tomac ripped the whole shot and led for a few laps, but ended up just starting to drop back, fading off a bit. Late in the race, I believe it was around 3 laps to go, Lawrence was out front trying to navigate his way around. Scotty Verhage was on the outside of one of the downhill corners getting ready to head downhill, and Hunter went into the rut, kind of bobbled a little bit. Thought he stalled initially, but it didn't look like it. Chase got on his rear wheel, and a couple sections later, Chase made the move, pulled away, got the moto victory, which made his second moto victory in the last 3 motos. Jett Lawrence came across in third place. That was very short-lived. The AMA gave him a 1-lap penalty for jumping the start. Now, I've been watching this sport for probably 12, 13 years now, and I can't recall seeing a penalty ever for anyone jumping the start. So it was a huge topic of conversation. It's not like F1 where you get like 5-second penalties, 10-second penalties. He got a 1-lap penalty. That from 3rd to 17th, which effectively eliminated him from podium contention, let alone overall victory contention. Second moto began. Once again, it was Hunter Lawrence and Eli Tomac out front. Hunter forced Tomac a little wide in one of the first few corners, took off with the lead, but that was short-lived because Jett Lawrence was riding angry. He flew the first few people, took the lead, didn't break away like we thought he would when he came into the moto, but he still got the lead, rode out a little bit. Hunter was set for the overall, cruising in second. Then he goes down, and all of a sudden Chase Sexton is in position after an okay start. Not great, but he was around 5th or so. And then we have a wild incident involving Sexton. His front wheel was not turning. Ian Harrison, Red Bull KTM, just released a statement a little bit ago. We're recording this Tuesday afternoon. I will read that shortly. But Sexton's front wheel locked up. It was not turning at all. He lands very hard off the jump, goes down hard, gets back up, tries to get his bike going again. Bike is running, but the front wheel is not turning at all. Chase threw down the bike. Obviously, we've seen the backwards hat from the KTM stuff in the last few months or so. He might not even wear any hats at this point. He was angry, visibly frustrated, and rightfully so. Probably felt like the bike gave up on him, and he walked back to the pits. And Hunter Lawrence got to claim his first career overall victory with 2-2 scores as Jett Lawrence won the final moto. And a big shout out as well. Congratulations to RJ Hampshire in his 9th 450 motocross start. He gets on the overall podium, 2nd overall. Great finish for RJ. Fantastic weekend. He's been trending upward, and with a little bit of luck this weekend, second overall. Huge props to him and the entire Husqvarna team. Third overall on the podium, rounding it out, Eli Tomac with 6.3 scores. A strange weekend for Tomac a little bit, but he still claims an overall podium. Let's get right into the penalty talk. I'll go first. I was kind of blown away when I saw that. When I heard Steve Mathis say on Twitter, he's like, "Oh, Jett's docked a lap," I honestly thought he was joking at first. I didn't really think anything of the gaining an advantage position. I still don't think Jett gained a huge advantage. He flinched off the start. It's not like he was actively trying to jump the start and went past the gate by the time everybody was still sitting there. I used the example when I was on Twitter voicing my frustration about everything going on of another Lawrence, actually. Jason Lawrence, J-Law, Hangtown 2009. J-Law dumped his clutch and literally rode over the gate and took off, and everybody was still sitting on the line with their revs up. Jett was already in the back of the pack at the end of the first corner, basically. Got around the first turn, maybe 25th. I don't know. It just seems like one lap is way too harsh. I can see a time penalty of some sort. Usually in motocross, it's a position thing. Like if you jump during the red cross flag, if you cut the track, it's usually a position penalty in the sport. But to have a one-lap penalty it's monumental, especially for a racer the caliber of Jett Lawrence. He was angry, and I feel like rightfully so, but Mike Pelletier explained the rule on the Peacock broadcast, and if it's in the rule book, it's concrete, and you can't do anything about it. But I feel like it's kind of a harsh penalty. Jack, what are your thoughts on this Jett Lawrence gate controversy?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Because he didn't really gain an advantage technically by doing what he did. But at the end of the day, it's like kind of a gray area what happened to Jett. Like if you jump the gate, like we've seen before, like a friend of mine, Heath Harrison, right? He's gotten away with it a few times, but he kind of times the gate a little bit and almost like pops the front wheel up right before, that the gate drops. As long as you don't touch the gate, it's fine, And yeah, it's just kind of a weird rule. And obviously, Jett hit the gate, and the gate went forward, and he went over the gate, before it dropped. So it's kind of, yeah, like you're not really supposed to do that, right? So that's kind of how the AMA took it, and I think that's kind of how it's supposed to be, right? And it's definitely one of those things where it's a gray area, and I think that what happened definitely didn't help Jett. But at the end of the day, it is something that happened, and you're gonna have to live with it, right? Like you can't really go back from it and say like, I don't really know, like go back and be like, oh, it didn't happen, but like it did. So it's like the AMA has to do something about it. You can't do that, and you have to wait for the gate to drop before you go forward. And Jett didn't do that, and I think it's maybe a little harsh, one lap down, but at the end of the day, if that's somebody else and they lead a bunch of laps and they jump the gate way before it goes down, it's like tough to explain. But I don't know. It's a weird situation, but definitely didn't help Jett when it came to the overall positioning, and helps his brother out, I think, a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's not like a huge deal. I think Jett kind of has his title locked up anyways. If it had major title implications, it'd be a little bit different. But it's just stuff like that. You wish the AMA would be a little bit more concrete about some things that they say, but at the end of the day, what they say goes. And I think if it's in the rule book like that, you can't do that, and that's the way they have it, panned out. It's the way it goes, and not much else you can really say, right? I mean, it happened, and it's over now, and he has to deal with the 1 lap penalty, which sucks, but that's it's just the way life goes, right?
You mentioned the points fight. Entering Ironman, Jett, I believe, had a 61-point gap over Hunter. Now, with the penalty and him dropping back to 17th, points lead, I think, is down to 47, which means he might not be able to wrap up the title around early unless he outscores Hunter by 3 points this weekend at Unadilla. But in terms of gray areas and stuff, this is kind of a gripe I have with all motorsports series. Not just AMA Motocross and Supercross, but also like NASCAR, F1. I feel like there are too many gray area penalties. I feel like as a racing fan, we should have black and white concrete penalties. There have been instances in NASCAR, for example, of drivers wrecking other racers. Some of them have gotten fined. Some of them have gotten docked points. Others have been flat out suspended. And where is the consistency when you do that? If you're intentionally wrecking somebody and right hooking someone in a sport like NASCAR, you deserve to be suspended. Point blank. That's my opinion. Then you look at F1, and I know the FIA is so beloved by all the fans, but you have people getting different penalties for cutting the course. Sometimes guys get penalties for contact, and others get a little bit less and get kind of a slap on the wrist and maybe a penalty point, but not a penalty during a race. I just feel like there are so many judgment calls in racing sometimes. While I feel that the penalty is harsh, I've never, or at least I don't remember seeing anything like this, which is probably why I was like, what in the world when it happened? But I feel like there are so many inconsistencies, and usually the AMA penalty inconsistencies come from, like I said, cutting the track, maybe jumping on a red cross flag. There have been times where people have been docked 2 or 3 positions. There are times when people are docked 5 or 6. I know sometimes it depends on the severity, but I wish there was just a little bit more consistency with officiating across the board. But realistically, you could look at any professional sport or motorsports and complain about consistency of officiating, and I feel like that's just something that will never change despite, the video evidence or whatever. Now we have certain timing loops and GPS systems. I don't know if it'll ever change, but we can definitely hope that things get better in the future. Regardless, Hunter Lawrence earned the overall victory. It's a long time coming. Congratulations to him. He is now, I think, one of 5 racers with 10 plus overall podiums before they got their first win. I don't know the official stat, and I'm not sure all of the riders who qualify for that. I know now that Aaron Plessinger has the most podiums of active riders without clinching an overall victory in the 450 class. I think he has 15 overall podiums. He's not quite at the record that Andrew Short holds, a record that I'm sure no one really wants, but food for thought. Congratulations to Hunter after being so close so many times to Jett or Chase Sexton last year. He finally gets the job done. Now let's move to you guys, Jack. The Dirt Bike Depot team back in action. You guys skipped Washougal because it was such a far distance from your headquarters down in Florida. And not only were you guys back, you had almost a full squad ready to go. Gage Linville was back after his Brazil Arena Cross performance. Jace Kessler was back in action after a fair race win a week or 2 ago. Crockett Myers returned for the first time since Thunder Valley, getting his health sorted out a little bit. He was back and ready to roll. And you guys had a new addition under the tent, the Dirt Bike Depot team expanding to women's motocross, supporting Jamie Astudillo, who was 5th overall in the WMX series this weekend. Jack, take me through your weekend a little bit with the team. Some ups, some downs, but overall I feel it was a very productive weekend for the team. A couple points on the board, 3 guys back in action, expanding your presence into WMX, and you guys have your first member of the team for 2026. Tell us about Ironman, Jack.
Yeah, Ironman was successful. I feel like it was a good start to this final 3 rounds that we have coming up, and obviously the goal with kind of doing outdoors is to get our feet wet in it and to hopefully qualify for SMX, right? I mean, it's and I think Gage is the only guy that really has a good chance, and he's doing a good job of putting himself inside that top 20 and doing his best to score points. But to have Crockett and to have Jace kind of coming back to full strength after his collarbone surgery and whatnot, it's nice. It's good to have more bikes under the tent. It kind of takes the stress off of 1 or 2 guys, kind of opens it up a little bit to other guys being able to do things with having Crockett there, and even Jamie being able to race and whatnot and do some of that things with her, right? So it was really good. I mean, to have everybody in the motos, Crockett definitely took him a minute to get back to that race pace. I think his qualifying wasn't the greatest, and he got it done in the LCQ though, which was great. And And then with Jace, he's finally able to kind of push himself to his motos compared to just only having it for a couple laps. It seemed like he had more on the tank this weekend and was definitely able to charge and stuff like that throughout the motos. So it was good. And then obviously, like, our first motos were honestly pretty good. Like, we had Jason got 28th, Crockett got 31st, and Gage got 20th, and he had a really, really good moto going right away. He got a top 10 start and then kind of moved his way from, he was kind of dropping back with all those factory guys that are in the mix, but he's inside the top 15 for the first couple laps, and then unfortunately had a little bit of a tip over. But no, he did well. He got himself, back up when he picked his bike up at 27th and worked his way up through the pack and got up to 20th place and rode in from there. He was in some good battles, made some good moves, and it was cool to see. And even Jason Crockett, they started pretty much dead last. I mean, they were way at the back of the pack, and they both were able to navigate through some traffic and make some passes and really do a good job. So it was good. It wasn't the greatest showing from Jason Crockett. We expect him to be kind of close to that top 25, but to be in the motos for everybody and to have no issues really throughout the day, it was great. I couldn't really complain, and hopefully next week in Unadilla we will have even more guys next weekend. I believe Marcus Phelps will be returning to action with the team, and that'll be the first time this year where we've had all 4 contracted guys at the race, so that'll be cool. And it'll be cool with Jamie as well, to have a girl race out there and get some more TV action and whatnot, and some more coverage for the team is always good. So yeah, not a great weekend, honestly. Like, you really can't complain, and hopefully Unadilla brings some more success.
I mentioned it a little bit, or teased it, I should say, but Gage Linville will be returning to the Dirt Bike Depot WMR KTM team for the 2026 season. He's been the flagship guy for your guys' team. You look at last year, it was kind of his breakout year. It was his second Supercross season, but he went from occasional main event guy to weekly main event guy. He was top 15 level, showed a lot of signs of potential. Then last summer, of course, you guys were not racing outdoors yet, so he went up to Canada, won a race or two up there, and competed very well. Coming back this season, he was a little banged up through part of the season and didn't get to show some of the flashes of speed he showed last year, but he also had that incredible podium in the mud at Foxborough, where he went from down in the first corner to claiming a podium in a mud race, and he's been really the foundation, the building block for the Dirt Bike Depot organization. So from your standpoint, working with the team the last few years, what does it mean to have Gage already locked up and signed for next year, when so many people, so many teams have their lineups and their roster kind of up in the air?
Yeah, definitely. For us, we kind of have to wait for these factory teams to kind of figure out who they want to get, because that's just where everybody wants to be, so that's always a tough thing for us when it comes to getting a roster together and whatnot. And it was a letter of intent, so like nothing's nothing crazy, but the intention is to have Gage on the team next year and bring him back, and that's the goal, right? Is to keep your best guy and to have your most successful rider be a part of your program. And to be with Gage the last 2 years and him be do as well as he has, it's always good to see. And to hopefully continue with the success with Gage. I think there's a lot left in the tank for him. I think some of his results this year haven't been the greatest or the whatnot, but I think there's more in there for him. I think that some of the things that's happened, he's kind of had some unlucky crashes in times, and it's kind of hurt his results. But hopefully next year we can kind of buckle down and get some more consistency going, and hopefully we can see some top 10s more consistently and stuff like that. I think it's a good thing for us, and it helps with sponsors and stuff like that to know that we have a guy like Gage coming back to ride for us next year.
I think it's a great move for both parties because, like I mentioned, he really seemed to find his own, to find his groove once he joined your guys' organization. And for you guys to have a top performer like that, a guy who not only is solid on track, but the few times I've interacted with Gage, whether it's been in interviews or talking to him in person, a very down-to-earth, well-spoken guy that you would want to sponsor and to support if you were the team. So it's awesome to see that you guys are working toward 2026 together. Before we get into the 250 class overall stuff from Ironman, I actually have my own little bit of news to share. I am now an official part of the Trans World Motocross team, pumping out articles online, helping them create some content. I want to thank Gavin Ayala, everybody over at Trans World for bringing me on board. Obviously, I feel like Trans World's kind of a sleeping giant. They were probably the number 2, number 3 most respected outlet for a long time. Of course, things happened. The brand went on hiatus, but Gavin started to get things back rolling last summer, get the website back running, get some videos up on YouTube. Been building slowly, but I'm really stoked and honored to have a chance to help the brand grow a little bit, get that steady presence of articles up online and the news flowing. I also want to thank, I'm not sure if he wants the shout out, but Gavin told me that he suggested me for the role, so I do want to shout out Kellen Brower as well for looking out for me. Thank you, Kellen. He's given me some pretty good advice over the last couple months or so since I really started to chat with him some at the Pittsburgh Supercross. And to everybody who's helped me get to this point, thank you as well. Not going to mention everybody by name just for the sake of time in this podcast, but for all of the people who have helped me progress to this point, from just starting 2 years ago after being a fan and thinking, I need to start writing articles after a conversation with Michael Lindsay, and then developing a series, writing for a couple outlets. The people who have supported me, thank you so much. I'm excited for this new chapter, excited to see where it goes, and I encourage everybody to check out motocross.com for your latest news, information, race recaps. We're going to be trying to build that stuff up over there, and then check out Trans World Motocross on YouTube as well. Gavin is more of the video and editing sort of guy, so he's got a lot of really cool footage up there. Some highlights from the 250 overall at Ironman, where Haiden Deegan and Joe Shimoda were battling. We're going to switch gears to that now. After all the chaos of the 450 class, 250 division was kind of tame this weekend in terms of what to expect and what out front. Haiden Deegan went 1-1, Joe Shimoda 2-2, Tom Vial 3-3. On paper, that was pretty expected. Tom, of course, has had a bit of an up and down summer, but for him to come back from his crash at Spring Creek with an overall podium is a great result for him. Joe led almost all of the first moto. He had a 7-second lead at one point, but Haiden Deegan started developing lines, really started to get some more ground on Shimoda, and ended up catching him later in the moto and then pulling away. And then second moto was pretty much over after the first corner because Haiden pulled the whole shot and was just gone. You look deeper in the field, there's a lot of depth, a lot of talent with some new faces in the pack. You had Brody Connolly come over from Australia. Mathis Borame was in the field. You had guys like Kate Johnson turn pro and put in solid motos. And of course, a bunch of guys returning from injuries, not just Vial. Julian Beaumaire was back. Pierce Brown was back, even though he went down again. So wishing the best to Pierce Brown. Daxton Bennick was back in action. Rough weekend for him, but a lot of people returning. Things are still the same, though, up top. Haiden Deegan now in position to potentially wrap up the title around early. And, of course, there's been teases of him possibly jumping to the 450 early. Deegan left Ironman with a 51-point lead. He needs to maintain this gap. He can't let Joe gain any ground this weekend if he wants to wrap up the title around early. But, Jack, I know you were obviously watching your Dirt Bike Depot boys out there, but a very dominant performance from Haiden Deegan just after a stretch of races where we thought he might be losing his grip on the top spot, at least in terms of speed and domination a little bit.
Deegan's Moto 1 was really where I was impressed, right? I mean, he got kind of buried on the start and was outside the top 5 looking in, and Shimoda got a whole shot. So, that's the worst case scenario for Haiden, right? I mean, to start right behind him or start in front of him, that's always the best case scenario in that situation. But Shimoda was out front, and he was, buried, I guess, right? And, I mean, the goal was, you would think that Shimoda could hold him off and, keep the gap where it was, but Deegan just put his head down and really, really, really went for it, and that was just it, Deegan put in a heck of a ride. I mean, he caught Shimoda with, I think, about 10 minutes left and was able to make the pass and, really, really did a good job of making the move and doing what he could. So it was cool to see. I mean, I definitely think that when Deegan does leave, or I think he will wrap up the title this next weekend at Unadilla. I don't think as long as nothing crazy goes wrong, obviously, but yeah, no, I mean, if he's able to do that, it'll be really good. And I think his dominant performance this past weekend, Ironman, being able to hold off Joe in the second moto and chase him down in the first is a really good sign for him.
Like I mentioned, a lot of the stuff on the board, looking on paper for the 250 class, would be kind of expected. When you look at the top three, when you look at the guys outside of that range too, Garrett Marchbanks was 4th overall. Mikkel Harup had a solid weekend. Not a ton of really breakout or crazy off the board performances, but it seemed like, of course, you had that like 11 to realistically 40 range, which is just nonstop up and down movement. But Haiden Deegan gets another victory, his first overall victory at Ironman, another track off of his list. Sticking with Deegan as a topic of conversation, moving to the news now, it looks like Haiden Deegan will be in the Premier class next summer. His deal for next season, he is re-signed with Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing. He will be racing 250 Supercross, most likely defending his 250 West Championship that he won this year, but moving up to the 450 next year. And I think the interesting part about this, everybody has been wanting for the last couple years to see Jett versus Deegan. And the funny part about all of this is that Haiden Deegan will essentially have the exact same career timeline as a 250 rider and then moving up to the 450 class as Jett Lawrence did. The same exact timing. When you look across the board, just 3 years apart, Jett turned pro at the very end of the 2019 season. Haiden turned pro at the end of the 2022 season. They won their first championship outdoors. Jett won his in 2021 outdoors. Haiden, of course, outdoors last summer. And then they went on a stretch of winning consecutive championships. It's so funny how their careers have kind of mirrored each other to this point. We've known Deegan moving up to the 450 was inevitable. Now we have the words and the timeline on when we can expect everything. So what are your expectations, Jack, for this next year or so? Obviously, he wants to defend his crown in Supercross. Or you never know, they might send him on the East Coast and be like, hey, go try to join that company with like Jett Lawrence, Grant Langston, guys who have won both coast championships. Deegan on a 450 next summer is going to have a lot of people talking come May 2026.
I think Deegan on a 450 it's due, right? I mean, it's time for him to move up. I mean, he's dominated the 250 class the last 2 years now, right? And it's definitely going to be tough for him, I think, in the 450. I don't think it's going to be as natural of a transition as it was for Jett. I don't think he'll be bad. I think he'll definitely have the ability to contend for moto wins and be on the podium consistently, but it'll definitely be, I don't think it'll be as dominant as Jett. I mean, it's pretty hard to beat that when you go perfect in your first season in the 450 class. That's pretty unbelievable, right? I mean, I don't think that's going to be what he does it by any means. I think if Jett and Chase are healthy and even Tomac and Hunter, it's going to be tough for him to contend with those boys. I think it'll teach him a lot. Hopefully we get to see a little bit of a preview at Budds Creek. I'm hoping that's the case, right? But yeah, man, I mean, I definitely I'm interested to see how he does and if he's got what it takes to win a title up there. I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot of learning. I think it's going to take him a season to get fully acclimated to the class. I think it definitely in Supercross it's going to be really tough for him. But outdoors, I think he'll have a really good chance of being a contender right away.
I agree with that, especially the outdoors part. I mean, he showed a ton of speed immediately. He held the red plate his rookie year even in 250 outdoors. But Supercross might be a little bit of a harder transition. He's not necessarily struggled in Supercross, but he hasn't had that runaway success as much as he's had outdoors. Plus, we know Deegan is a very confident individual, let's say, and he's known sometimes for ruffling feathers and there are some guys in the 450 class that are not going to take that. There are a couple guys, I'm thinking of the 51 and the 21. If he tries any funny business with those guys, he's getting put in the cheap seats. But Haiden Deegan, 450 next year. Speaking again of Haiden Deegan, Team USA lineup finally revealed. We have been talking and predicting like the lineup would be Chase Sexton, Haiden Deegan, Eli Tomac, and now we have confirmation that that's the case. Roger DeCoster stepping down, so Mike Pelletier, in his first year of managing Team USA, will have Chase Sexton, Haiden Deegan, and Eli Tomac. And Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, when you first saw the team lineup, it's like, oh boy, we have a really good shot at winning. And then you watch the motos Saturday, and it's like, man, there's definitely some questions around the team. On paper, you look at Sexton, Deegan, Tomac, you think of the race wins, the championships, the success of all of those guys. But I also kind of think back to 2018 when Motocross of Nations was on home soil. Obviously, this was Redbud, not Ironman. But we had the Tomac, Plessinger, Barsha team. Tomac was coming off his second straight outdoor title in fairly dominant fashion. Of course, he had a lot of battles with Marvin Musquin. But you look at AP that year, who won both the 250 West Supercross title and the 250 outdoor title. He was the class of the field in the 250 division here in America. And then Barsha, a guy who's always been rock solid, steady presence, had a very good 2015 Motocross of Nations. Realistically, Team USA just flat out sucked that year. And on paper, I felt like at the time we should be the best team by far. And you look on paper again, obviously we don't know all of the contenders yet. We only really know Australia out of the countries that are expected to contend for the victory. It's a very tricky lineup to predict. We could win. We could be fifth place. There are a lot of variables to talk about and to consider, but we've been talking about this lineup potentially bringing the Chamberlain Trophy back to America. We've expected it to be Sexton, Deegan, Tomac, or at least kind of hoped, because obviously there might be a little bit of question about team changes and such for next year. But we finally have confirmation. And Jack, I'm sure you're probably pretty happy with that lineup.
Yeah, it's definitely the best lineup that we could put together, right? I mean, Jake Goo's been good, RJ's been good, but I think when it comes to designations, I think Tomac's got the upper hand on everybody when it comes to just experience and kind of that like veteran mentality to kind of bring to this team. I think even Chase has that as well. Chase has definitely shown he has the speed to beat these Lawrence guys, and I think that's what it's going to take is a moto where we can beat those guys and Tomac can be, wherever, be close to those guys. And I think then the question mark lies on Deegan. How well will he do against these 450 guys who he's racing on his 250? If he's going to be trying to be a bonehead and make some silly moves and try to stuff it in on guys or whatever. So yeah, it's just different. It's definitely interesting. I think it's the best team we could have picked. So I'm definitely stoked with how that goes. But I'm interested to see how Deegan does on the 250 against these guys in the 450 class. I think I'm most excited to see how that is. Honestly, I think he'll be a lot better than some could expect. I hope that he puts in some good results.
We talk about Tomac's experience in Motocross of Nations. He's been there 5 times before this and has scored 4 podiums in the event. Obviously, Tomac and Sexton, along with Justin Cooper, helped Team USA break their drought and win the trophy back at Redbud in 2022. So with 2 members of that winning team, plus Haiden Deegan, who's been the class of the 250 division for the past 2 years, it's definitely a very spicy lineup on paper. Team USA versus Team Australia will probably be the focus of the fans over here, but I'm going to say we can't count out Team Netherlands or Team France. If Team Netherlands sends a Hurlings, De Wolf, Koldenhoff lineup, that's going to be a hard lineup to beat as well. You look at all the experience Jeffrey Hurlings has, not just in MXGP Motocross of Nations. Hurlings and Koldenhoff were a part of the 2019 Assen winning team that was on their home soil, but they realistically should have won it in 2018. Calvin Vlanderen was the MX2 rider then. They should have won it in 18, but Vlanderen took a rock to the eye and didn't start his last moto, so that was their throwaway score, and France ended up beating them by a couple points to end their run of dominance. The Netherlands realistically could have won a couple in a row during that time, and in terms of Deegan, De Wolf has kind of been his counterpart in the MXGP series. Obviously, he's down in the championship right now, but in terms of speed and raw talent and success overall the last couple years, De Wolf has been the top guy in the MX2 division. So it'll be interesting to finally get that Deegan versus De Wolf showdown that I think a lot of people were looking forward to. And you can't count out the French, man. They're always so solid at the event. They won 5 in a row from 2014 to 2018. They won again on home soil in 2023 with Romain Fevre, Tom Vial, and Maxime Renault. I feel like that could be their lineup again this season. You can never count out the French because they always are in contention. Plus, you have some other teams like the Belgians, the Italians. You never know who could rise to the occasion. Tim Geiser's back on the motorcycle. If Slovenia shows up, he will obviously be playing spoiler in one of the classes. So much yet to be revealed, but we can still keep hyping that race up for the beginning of October. Motocross of Nations at Ironman Raceway. Our last piece of major news for the day that we're covering, at least on episode 8 right here. We have a return this weekend. I think that was a little bit unexpected. I feel like everybody was just putting him off until the SMX playoffs. But we're going to get a little bit of German chocolate in the pantry this weekend. Ken Roczen is back. He took to Instagram yesterday, and he's like, well, I'm going to race Unadilla. And Kenny is going to be back for the Progressive X-Star Suzuki Crew, AGP Motorsports, Pipes Motorsports Group, whatever name you want to call it. Kickstart Kenny is returning to action. He has not competed since round 15 of Supercross, which was in Pittsburgh. He obviously had that nagging ankle injury at the end of the season, but he had a really productive year in Supercross, held the red plate in the early stages of the season after A1, was fighting for the win at Glendale, got the W at Daytona. Of course, he had a crash at Tampa that really knocked him out of the championship fight, but he was still putting together a really solid season. Should have been third in points or so if he would have finished out the year. But Kenny is back. Where do you expect to see him this weekend with a ton of talent, especially at the top end of the 450 class, when you have the Lawrence brothers and Sexton, who are quite possibly 3 out of the 4 best 450 riders in the world right now in terms of pure speed and technical ability?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see Kenny right around that top 5 area. I think it could be anywhere between 3 and 7. I don't think he'll be contending for a win. I think Jett and Chase and if Tomac's good on his day, or Lawrence will be better than him. I think one of those 4 guys is going to have a good day, so I don't think he's going to have the ability to win. I think the chance to lead laps or maybe even, be up there in the front for a little bit, but I just think not racing in a while and not being, as much of an outdoor guy anymore as he probably used to be. I think he's going to not struggle, but I don't think he's going to be a real challenge for the win. I think he has the ability to potentially podium. It'll be cool to see him. He's been putting some time on the bike. I hope his injuries have all healed, and hopefully we see him battling with those front guys. I think that's kind of it, right? I mean, I think he's just getting ready for SMX, getting some gate drops, and then hopefully maybe we'll see him Motocross for Team Germany.
That would be an awesome addition to the MXDN lineup, and he's raced it the past couple years, so I feel like he will most likely be an Ironman. But I kind of feel the same way as you do. He definitely has the potential to podium, but realistically, he's probably going to end up that 5 to 8 range with the Lawrence brothers and Sexton, and then I think if he ends up battling guys like Tomac, RJ, Justin Cooper, that's a solid return. You never know what to expect, really, when a guy comes back from injury. But it is great to see Ken Roczen back nonetheless. Getting into the prediction portion of our episode, really quick, the MXGP of Sweden is coming up this weekend at Uddevalla. I'm going to go rapid fire podium finisher so we can talk about our predictions for Unadilla and the AMA. One of my buddies calls Uddevalla, the track in Sweden, Unadilla to remember the name. So kind of funny. We got the two U tracks this weekend. But I'm going to go rapid fire podium predictions here for the MXGP of Sweden. GP class, my top three is going to be Kunin, Geiser, Febvre. I'm going to put Geiser ahead of Febvre. Realistically, I wouldn't be surprised to see Tim walk away with a victory because it's Tim Geiser. You don't win 5 world championships for no reason. So that is my MXGP class podium. It'll be interesting to see how he shakes out. The field getting healthier a little bit. Jeffrey Hurling's returned the most recent round at Lommel in Belgium. And then for the MX2 class, it seems like every time I pick De Wolf 2 weeks in a row, he does really good 1 week and then kind of craps the bed in the next one. So I'm not going to pick Kai De Wolf for P1 this week. I'm going to go Sasha Kunin for P1. And if he stays off the ground, I think he could be P1. That's the real question, you know. I'm going to go Kunin, Langenfelder, De Wolf for my MX2 podium. I have the Kunin brothers sweeping the MXGP of Sweden this weekend. So let's get your thoughts, Jack. Who's going to be on the podium in both the MXGP and MX2 classes?
Well, with Geiser coming back, it definitely throws a little bit of a wrench in things for Feb, right? I mean, it definitely is somebody that could finish in between him and Kunin. I wonder how good Geiser's fitness will be coming off injury and whatnot. But, you know, I think he'll be good. I don't think he'll be, too far off the pace if he is. But, yeah, I think I'm going to go Kunin, Feb, Geiser on my podium. I think Geiser could play spoiler to Feb in maybe the first moto and maybe get a second from Feb and give Kunin the ability to gain some more points on Roman Febvre, which would be massive for him. So that'll be my GP class. The MX2 class, I'm gonna go bold here. I think I'm gonna go Adamo winning. I think Adamo will be good here. I think we'll see Kai De Wolf in second, and then I'm gonna go Guillaume Ferrez in third. I think Gillum will have a good race. So I like Gillum. I think he's got a podium in him this weekend. I think he's been feeling good. I just talked to him a little bit after this past weekend, and he says he's been feeling good and he's ready to show something. So I think he'll be good. I think he has the chance for a podium. So that'll be my MX2 podium.
It's going to be really interesting to watch MX2 now because we have completely different views on the podium. One of us is going to be hero, one of us is going to be zero, maybe both of us are going to be zero. Who knows? Maybe Thibaut Benestant puts on like the ride of his life or something and goes P1. You never know with that MX2 class. You have an idea, but you never know for sure. Switching gears to the AMA Motocross Series. Let's start off with the 250 division, and I'm going to be kind of normal Norman at this point. I'm going to say Haiden Deegan wins, Joe Shimoda second overall, and Tom Vial third overall. I know, real original, but what else can you do? They were definitely the top 3 guys at Ironman. Tom really was only challenged by Garrett Marchbanks at the end of that first moto for third. Otherwise, he had that position on lock all day. And I feel like between experience and raw pace, those are just the top 3 guys in the series in general. Marchbanks has obviously performed very well this year, but Tom looks very good coming off of the injury. So I'm going to go with the very basic podium this weekend. I know it's not the fun answer. It's not the spicy answer, but sometimes you just got to get the job done. 450 class, man, I've picked Jett Lawrence the last 2 weeks in a row, and he hasn't won. And it feels strange picking against Jett Lawrence. So I'm going to say that Jett Lawrence wins Unadilla. I think he's lost 2 in a row, man. He's starting to slip. I think his winning percentage is either at 90% or below 90%. He's off his game, man. He needs to rebound. It's not quite the Jett Lawrence of old, you know. He started out winning 19 of 20 or whatever it is. He's lost his last 2. He's on a bad streak. But all jokes aside, it's still Jett Lawrence. He's still inevitable. And I just can't bring myself to pick anyone but Jett Lawrence because of his level of success in the class and over the last couple years. I'm going to go with Hunter Lawrence for P2 this week. I had him P3. I'm going to swap my podium prediction from last week. I'm going to put Hunter in P2 after his victory, and then I'm going to put Sexton in P3 Sexton could easily win the overall, but I'm sure he's extremely frustrated after the issue in Ironman. I said I was going to find the statement earlier, and I did not do that. So Ian Harrison saying after the race, he said, after inspecting the bike Saturday evening and reviewing the data, we now have a clearer understanding of what led up to Chase's crash in Moto2 at Ironman. And I want to clarify that it was neither rider nor mechanic error. Initially, we thought it was a front brake issue, but we now know that debris got into the rear brake system, preventing Chase from activating the rear brake. This forced him to reduce all of his speed, only using the front brake. We can also see from the bike data that he left the jump that he crashed on this lap at a much higher rate of speed than any other lap during the day. This issue, in turn, caused Chase to crash. Bike landed on the right side first, which then caused the front brake lever to get packed with mud and activate. Chase was unable to continue because of this. We will actively look for a solution to prevent this from happening again. But as we know in racing, motocross is tough on the equipment, and when you add the speed and intensity that our riders race at, this exaggerates everything. This was disappointing for both Chase and our team, as well as the fans, end quote. That was Ian Harrison talking about Chase's DNF in Moto2. I realized a few minutes ago that I just forgot to mention that statement because I brought it up earlier, but I'm going to go with Sexton third overall after his frustration. He could easily win. Like I said, the top three guys are kind of interchangeable right now. That Jett has had a bad couple races. Bad for him is literally not being first. But Jack, I'll throw it over to you. I'm going safe podiums. You went kind of wild with the MX2 win, so I'm hoping maybe you get a little spicy with the 450 and 250 class predictions for Unadilla.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 450 is pretty cut and dry, right? I mean, yeah, Jett, Tomac, Chase, and Hunter, right? Like those are the guys that you're probably gonna see on the podium. I think Chase gets it done this weekend. I think he likes Unadilla a lot. I think we see him up there, see Jett up there. And I'm going to throw a little screwball in there because why not? Barsha's back. Barsha's home at Unadilla. I'm going to say Justin Barsha gets third this weekend. Do I really think it's going to happen? Probably not, but I wouldn't be super shocked, but I do hope it happens. It'd be sick to see the 51 on the box. The 250 class, I mean, it's pretty safe to say Deegan. I think Deegan wants to get this title wrapped up. I think he's going to push really hard to get that wrapped up. I think Deegan will get it first. I think Shimoda will be second. And I think Drew Adams will be third place this weekend. I think Drew will be good up there at this track. I think Drew will be had a good ride this past weekend at Ironman, and I think he'll have the ability to, if he gets a good start, sneak up inside the top three. So I think there's a good opportunity for him there, and I hope to see it happen.
I appreciate you proving me right there and trying to go a little bit out of the box, so to say. But man, if Justin Barsha does get an overall podium, he is from New York. That would be a really cool moment. I've always had a lot of respect and appreciation for Barsha. As a fan, sometimes you find things to latch onto, and I started watching the sport in 2013, which was Barsha's rookie 450 season. So the one presence I can always really count on seeing in my time watching the sport is seeing Barsha on the 51 and the 450 class. And of course, a lot of people believe, and Steve Mathis reporting a few weeks ago, that he might be Ducati bound for 2026. It would also be very cool to see him get a final podium with the Gas brand, because he has brought them so much success, winning their first ever Supercross, Houston in 2021. Plus, he won an outdoor or two with them. He's had a lot of success and great results for that brand, so it would be awesome to see Barsha on the podium. And I really like that Drew Adams pick. If you would have asked me before this most recent weekend, I would have been down on Drew Adams. He's not performed at the level I would have expected him to this outdoor season. I know he was banged up a little bit. He had an injury he was dealing with, but at this time last summer, I would have said Drew Adams is the better prospect than Cole Davies. Then Supercross happens, and you start to question yourself. Obviously, Drew got hurt and called up a little late as well. But you go into the motocross season, and Drew wasn't really at the range I thought he could be, a top 5 guy at different points throughout the year. And that hasn't happened yet, but he's starting to get better. Washougal wasn't improving. I think he was 8th overall or something. 5th overall at Ironman, the first track that he's raced twice. it'll be awesome to see if Adams can continue his upward trajectory. I think he has a lot of raw talent. I think he has a lot of skill. And traditionally in the past, there's been something about gingers at Pro Circuit Kawasaki that just works. There's some guy named Ricky Carmichael that used to race for them. I think he turned out pretty well, and same with the Ryan Villapoto guy. If Drew Adams gets his first career podium this weekend, you heard it from Jack. We'll see if we get Jack Stradamus this weekend, or if we're just kind of throwing darts at the wall and seeing if they stick. Going to bring back part from last week. I don't know what you guys thought of the random position thing. I did hear a couple people say, yeah, that was pretty cool. So we're going to do a random position if that's cool with you, Jack. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm down with that. I was close last week, and my second pick was Gage, and he got 24th overall this weekend. I was kind of bummed about that one, but I was close.
Yeah.
I think I picked Bryce Shelley for my other one. I don't remember.
Yes, you did pick Bryce for your 450 class one. My pick, I had CJ Bernard in the 250 class. I think he was 25th overall instead of 22nd, and then Jeremy Hand was just outside the points. I think he was like 23rd, 24th overall. The number I rolled for this week is 16th. We're moving up a little bit in the order, and just to give you an idea before we pick, last year in the 450 class, it was Roman Pep with 1916 scores for 16th overall in the 450 class. And then in the 250 ranks, it was Casey Cochran with 11 DNF. It doesn't even say what position, just DNF. So I'm guessing like 1140, 1138, something like that. So interesting to see. I like to kind of look back at the last year's results just to see what moto scores we can kind of predict end up in that area. I'm going to go ahead and go first again. 250 class, 16th place. Man, I feel kind of crazy doing this to a certain extent, but it's been a rough summer for Nate Thrasher. He is not, I know he's been hurt the last couple summers and hasn't had a lot of time on the bike, but this year's summer, he's only got a couple top 10s or so. It's not been really pretty, but you know, I could go with an Avery Long. I could go with a Lux Turner, with a Dylan Schwartz. Schwartz is obviously faster than that, but you look at this weekend when he starts 38th and 40th and makes it incredibly hard on himself. I'm going to go with Nate Thrasher for my 16th overall in the 250 class. He's on a Star Yamaha. On paper, you'd think, man, that guy could do way better, but it's just been a rough summer for Nate. Hopefully, he gets things turned around in time for the playoffs to start. And then in the 450 class, I'm going to go with a guy who's changing teams. Steve Mathis was reporting the other day, and also Marshall Welton and posted this, but I just revealed it right there. Marshall Welton is my 16th place prediction. He is parting ways with the Gizmo Mods Rock River Power Sports Yamaha team. After almost 2 full years with them, he joined for Supercross last year, was an automatic qualifier for the playoffs in the 450 class last summer, was hurt, had some other bad luck during Supercross this year, only made one main event, came back to racing at Redbud. He's been a solid top 20 guy since returning from his injuries and from being on the sidelines. And according to Mathis, there has been no official post made yet, but we could see Marshall Welton on the brand new MX6 Racing Yamaha team this weekend. They've had some solid results this summer. Henry Miller's competing for them right now. Derek Kelly had some solid rides for them before he went out of the series with injury. But 16th overall, my predictions are going to be Nate Thrasher in the 250 class, Marshall Welton in the 450 class. I went with a couple Yamaha guys this weekend. Jack, who's going to be 16th in the Empire State this weekend?
I'm going to go Cullen Park with 16th. I think he's been riding good. He had a tough Ironman. He crashed on the start in the second moto and then was just battling from the back in the first moto and got up to 21st, I believe. He went 21, 24. But I think there's more in the tank for him. I think a hard pack track he might actually be pretty good at is Unadilla. I'm going to go Cullen Park for 16th. And then for the 450 class, I think I'm going to go a guy like, I don't even know, man. It's hard to say. I'm going to go Benoit Patrell with 16th. I think he's been close to that top 15 range all year, but I think it's going to be a 16th world at Unadilla.
That's a very hard class to predict because, like we mentioned with the 250 class as well, you have so many guys. You could have, for example, Benoit, a guy like Harry Koulis, Mitchell Harrison, Valentin Guillot. They could get like 8th, 9th, 10th one weekend and then be back to 15th or 16th because of the level of depth of talent in that class. Plus, you add in Ken Roczen to the mix. Dylan Ferrandis returned around from early from injury. Kyle Webster's over here from Australia. I'm not sure if Shane McElrath will be racing the final two, but he raced Ironman. So you add a few more variables in there, and I don't think any place other than really if I rolled like 1, 2, or 3, which we already predict, would be easy to pick because there's so much fluctuation and talent, and that's part of the sport of motocross and what we enjoy about it. One guy could be top 10 one week, and the next week he could be crawling and fighting for 15th. Lorenzo Locurcio, another guy who could be in that range. Lorenzo's had a pretty solid summer. But that pretty much wraps up episode 8. A lot to talk about after Ironman with the Jett Lawrence penalty, the Chase Sexton crash. Hunter Lawrence finally got the job done. Deegan in position to wrap up the title early, plus the news of him going to the 450 next summer. Ken Roczen coming back, Team USA revealed. Jack, any final thoughts before we conclude today's episode and get ready for Unadilla this weekend?
No, man. I mean, I think Unadilla will be cool. I've never been, and I'm excited to see the track and to hang out. I think we'll be doing some races on Thursday night as well, so I'm excited for that.
Best of luck to the Dirt Bike Depot crew once again, and safe travels as you guys head up to New York. This has been episode 8 of the Stire Sound. Thank you for listening. We encourage you to continue spreading the word and continue sharing our social media posts or our show wherever you may listen to it. Thank you for listening. This is Trey Stire for Jack Noel. This has been episode number 8 of the Stire Sound. Thank you for all of the support so far, and the Stire Sound is fading out.